A Roman senator was banished to a rock island with nothing. 8 years later, he'd figured out something modern psychology is still catching up to. In 41 AD, Seneca made a calculation that cost him everything. He'd backed the wrong faction in a palace coup, or rather, he'd failed to back anyone loudly enough. Emperor Claudius didn't tolerate ambiguity. The sentence, exile to Corsica, an island prison indefinite term. Seneca was in his mid-30s. He had wealth, a name, influence in Rome. All of it gone in one decision made by a man he'd never met. What he didn't have was a choice about how to respond. That's the first thing to understand about Seneca's exile. It wasn't a retreat he chose. It was a catastrophe imposed on him. No meditation app, no self-help book, no therapist waiting on the island. Just 8 years of forced isolation in a place where most exiles either broke or died. But here's what Seneca did. Instead of waiting for release, instead of writing letters begging for clemency, he began writing letters to his friend Lucilius back in Rome. These weren't complaints, they were experiments. Each letter was a test. Can I find freedom in a place where I have no freedom? Can I build a life worth living when everything external has been stripped away? Exhibit 1, Seneca rejected the core assumption everyone around him held, that exile was punishment. He reframed it as a laboratory. He wrote to Lucilius, "The location doesn't matter, only what you do with your mind matters." This wasn't denial. It was a strategic decision made under pressure. He knew the cost of despair. He'd watched other exiles lose their minds, so he chose to treat confinement as data. Exhibit 2, he gave himself a daily practice. Not prayer, not distraction, discipline. He would examine his thoughts each evening, asking, did I make progress today? Did I control what was in my control? Did I accept what wasn't? He called it premeditatio malorum, negative visualization. He'd already lost everything, so he practiced losing it again on purpose in his mind. This neutralized the fear. Exhibit 3, and this is where it gets strange, Seneca began arguing that his exile was actually an advantage, not because he was lying to himself, but because he'd identified a real asymmetry. In Rome, wealth and status had been distractions. They'd eaten his time, demanded his attention, pulled him into politics and competition. On Corsica, they were gone, so was the noise. What remained was his actual self. He wrote, if you would be a philosopher, prepare yourself to be laughed at, to be mocked, to be cast out. He wasn't being poetic, he was doing the math. The cost of living by principle in a corrupted system is exile, social, professional, maybe literal. But the cost of compromising your values to stay comfortable, that's paid in a different currency. It's paid in pieces of yourself. Now you might think this is just ancient Stoicism, nice theory, doesn't apply to modern life. You'd be wrong. Seneca's real insight wasn't about accepting suffering, it was about separating what happened to him from what he made of it. He couldn't control the exile, he could control whether it destroyed his mind. That distinction changed everything. Here's the practical cost-benefit he was running: 8 years of isolation versus a lifetime of compromised integrity. 8 years of hard conditions versus the slow erosion of character that comes from always calculating what the powerful want to hear. He was betting that clarity about who you are is worth more than comfort about where you are. And here's what happened. After 8 years, Seneca was released. He returned to Rome. He didn't resume his old life of political maneuvering. Instead, he became an advisor to Nero, and he used that position to counsel moderation, to push back against cruelty when he could, to write the philosophical letters that would outlast empires. He'd earned something on that island that Rome couldn't touch. The letters he wrote from exile, the ones that survived, they're not about the island, they're about freedom. And that's the inversion Seneca discovered. You don't find freedom by gaining control of your circumstances. You find it by controlling your response to circumstances you can't change. For modern professionals, this matters. You're not exiled to Corsica, but you are trapped in systems you didn't choose, jobs with bad managers, industries shifting beneath you, relationships that disappoint, social pressures that demand conformity. The specifics change, the structure doesn't. You have limited control over what happens. You have total control over how you interpret it. Seneca's method was simple. First, identify what's actually in your control: your effort, your attention, your judgments. Second, accept what isn't: other people's opinions, market conditions, timing. Third, build your life around the first category, not the second. Stop betting your peace of mind on outcomes you can't guarantee. The practical payoff: when you stop depending on external validation, you stop being hostage to it. When you stop trying to control what you can't, you stop exhausting yourself. When you accept limitation, you find surprising freedom within it. This isn't resignation, it's strategic clarity. Seneca would spend the rest of his life testing this principle. He'd face political danger again. He'd eventually be forced to take his own life under Nero's orders. But by then, he'd already won something more durable than safety. He'd won the knowledge that his inner life was his own. No emperor could exile that. So when adversity hits, and it will, you're not looking for the miracle that makes it disappear. You're looking for the perspective that makes it survivable. Seneca found that on a rock island with nothing, it's still available to you. The cost is attention. The payoff is freedom you can actually keep. Subscribe for more philosophical frameworks that turn historical wisdom into modern strategy, one decision at a time.